On January 5, 2022, the federal government of Nigeria officially proscribed bandit groups 41 days after an Abuja court proscribed and declared them terrorists. This was meant to be a game changer in the war against terrorism. Many attacks on communities have been attributed to bandits, especially on agrarian communities, exacerbating the farmers-herders clashes. With the law gazetted, the armed forces were expected to have the backing to deal a lethal blow to the activities of terrorists masquerading as bandits across the nation. While this has not been the case, the armed forces say there have been steady progress in reaching the objective. Another security challenge was with secessionist agitations. This is largely seen in the southeast, with attempts by the proscribed group Indigenous People of Biafra and the Eastern Security Network enforcing the contentious sit-at-home order over the continued detention of the trial of the IPOB leader NNAMDI KANU. Although the security operatives hit several camps of the proscribed groups and neutralized a large number of them, the attacks have not ended. The government's efforts at addressing insecurity in the region using force have come under severe scrutiny. This follows the call on the government for the immediate release of the leader of the IPOB, NNAMDI KANU. In October, the Court of Appeal in Abuja, the federal capital, declared as illegal and unlawful the abduction of NNAMDI KANU from Kenya to Nigeria and quashed the entire terrorism charges brought against him by the federal government. He was therefore discharged and acquitted. Analysts say obeying the court order and exploring other non-kinetic measures would create a bigger room for peace.
Well, let's start by tracing the history of those orders, because the Southeast rightly feels marginalized in Nigeria, and they also feel that their political elites, the lawmakers at the federal level and then the state governors, do not articulate those issues as they would want to, especially in their engagement with our federal partners. And that gave rise to alternate groups who use the non-functionality of the Nigerian state and then the abysmal performance of Southeast political elites to carve a niche for themselves. And they began to talk about alternate political platforms. They began to talk about paint pictures of alternate situations, and those things were then begun to capture the audience, the minds of and hearts of the people, because any Dick and Harry can wake up and regurgitate the problems, but the question is, how are you articulating the solutions? So these people, their articulation of their solution to what they felt was a problem was that if you protest, they call it civil disobedience, by closing your office, closing your shop, that Nigeria will hear you. And they did it, and at some point people voluntarily complied to those sit-at-home orders. But eventually people began to question the effectiveness of such orders. How are we sure that this is going to achieve us the attention we want? How has things improved since we started sitting at home? And people began to say, look, this is not going anywhere. And that's where you see the armed or violent enforcement, because they have lost the credibility in the eyes of many. They began to violently impose their will on many by possibly sponsoring armed groups and other groups to enforce, kill people, maim people, loot shops, loot offices, burn down markets in some places. So the consequence is on the Southeast that we lose, for some states, 1 out of every business day in the week. That's 1 day of no productivity. In terms of the economy, it has implications. That also has implications on the education sector, because at some point, these people went to schools, burnt properties, attacked educational institutions, killed teachers, and terrorized students.
Now let's talk about, some of the suggestions, to end insecurity in the Southeast. Now, one of them is for non-kinetic measures to be developed and possibly see the government begin to negotiate or talk to these non-state actors. Well, how far do you think this will go in trying to resolve the crisis in the Southeast?
It will achieve its purpose, but again, it will have other contributors that will help it achieve those purposes. For instance, go conduct an opinion poll. You will see how badly damaged Southeast political elites are in the eyes of many Southeasterners. So to begin by confidence building, the political elite of the Southeast must so visibly engage and convince the people that they are working for their best interest. I will not mention any names, but again, if you ask people on the street, this is your governor, what do you think about him? This is your senator, what do you think about him? You begin to see. So even if there's going to be a negotiation between Nigeria and some parts of the South and the Southeast, those negotiations are understandably to be led by elected representatives, elected governors. But when those governors don't have the mandate in quotes or don't enjoy the confidence of the people, then whatever you discuss there will not mean so much to the people. First, we will start by Southeast political elites realigning and repurposing themselves to serve the interests of the Southeast.
On the political front, 2022 saw an increase in politically motivated attacks. These include attacks on offices of Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) and on political actors. INEC in December said it recorded 8 attacks on its offices in 2022. It is feared that these may likely increase as the political climate intensifies.
There are also groups who we don't know what their interests are, who are hell-bent on sabotaging the activities, especially pre-election activities in the Southeast. Because if you triangulate the offices of INEC, for instance, that are being burnt, you then ask yourself, why then are they geolocated in one political zone? We have insecurity in the Northeast. We have insecurity in the Northwest. We have insecurity in the North Central. We have insecurity in the Southwest. We have even more insecurity in the South-South, where you have oil facilities being attacked. Although there's a negotiated peace there, but you also know that you have non-state actors in their numbers still operating in that region. Why are INEC offices protected well enough in all these theaters, even theaters of confrontation, but when you come to a particular geopolitical zone, INEC offices are attacked? So you ask yourself, who stands to benefit when INEC offices are attacked in one political region? Those answers are up in the air.